not a necessity. Boom.
Hey fam, it's another episode of the BOON Podcast. I'm Candice Wynn, your host, and of course I have my brother to my right, Robert Harold Irvin.
You changed my name.
Ethan, and it's spelled with the O because it's ghetto.
Wow. Wow. I hope my mom sees this.
So sorry.
That was her
Mom,
dad's
love
name.
You.
Yep.
Stop that.
Hope she sees it. No, I'm gonna show it. I'm gonna make sure she sees it.
Oh my gosh.
Mom, Candace call your dad ghetto.
No, I did not. I didn't call her ghetto. I didn't call him ghetto. I called his parents ghetto. Let's just be clear. Grateful for your grandfather, your great grandparents, for the way that they have just kept that legacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kept that legacy.
But now the whole world knows.
Now the whole world knows. Mm-hmm. Can't unhear it. I love you, my brother. Whoopsie. But today, I'm excited about the opportunity to just dive in and talk with you for a second, because we've had a lot of guests and a lot of people coming in talking about a lot of different things. Even the episode that dropped last month was a lot of people in a conversation, just having just some great dialogue. And that honestly was one of my favorites. Yeah. Just talking about just some things within our tradition, within our faith, maybe some traditional things that we've gotten away from that we need to kind of lean back into, or even thinking about some innovation that we need to either just continue to magnify, or maybe some innovation has gone a little bit too far. Yeah. You know,
the cool part about it is just different the perspectives of people, like the different denominations, different backgrounds, different way of seeing things, which has been cool. So yep.
But I love just being able to just sit and talk with you. And in today's conversation, we're leaning into change.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm probably the best person for you to talk to.
Really? Why do you say that?
I mean, you know, I watch episodes and how you talk to everybody else, how you talk to me. It's just your brother brings something different out of you. You know, it's more natural.
Okay.
You host better when it's just me and you.
When it's just us.
Yep.
You think so? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's jump into it. Let's talk about change. I think that change is something that we all experience. When I was in, I think I was in 11th grade. I cheered in high school, and when I was in the 11th grade, we had a cheerleading coach that decided to go to serve in the Army. So she left. We loved her. Well, first we hated her. Let's just be honest. We hated her first. Then we decided, hey man, she's actually isn't that bad. And we all just started really loving her. And then she decides to go into the service. So we get a new coach, and this new coach steps in. At this point, I'm a senior. When the new coach steps in, and all of us who have been under this different leadership, we kind of just like weren't feeling this new coach. Yeah. We were just not feeling her. We were kind of giving her hell a little bit, right? Yeah. Just like really just disturbing her peace. She would try to teach us these cheers. We were like, that's ghetto. I'm not doing that, right? And she just really had a hard time with us. And she brought in an assistant coach, thinking the assistant coach would kind of help to settle us girls down. It didn't work. One day, maybe it did work for the story I'm about to tell. One day, the assistant coach gets up at practice, and she looks all of us in our eyes, and she just looks at us for a second. And then she's just like, the only thing constant in the world is change. And if you don't get with it, you're going to be one sad person the rest of your life. And as I sat there as a senior in high school, and of course, you know, thinking about my senior year in high school, life is about to change. I'm in this transition period from just being in elementary, middle, high school underneath my parents' care to venturing off to whatever was next. And I'm just thinking about what's to come and thinking about the personal changes that I'm experiencing from just even growing up and going through puberty. And I remember sitting there looking at her and wanting to break down crying and just wanting to thinking like, yo, you just rock my world in that. But the fact of it is, it's true. The only thing constant in this world is change. Yeah. And it's one of the things that we just have got to get with. And if you don't, you're going to be one sad person for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Because you have to adapt. But change is funny because change is always exciting for the person coming in. And it's tense and anxious for the person going out. Right? So the entrance... So that coach coming in, excited for a new job opportunity, chance to meet new kids, new school, that changed excitement. But on you guys' end, new coach, somebody who we don't know, this change makes us anxious. We don't know what she's going to do. She's changing up stuff. So change just, it's the perspective on which side you're on, right?
That's so true.
Like it's the children of Israel coming out of Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, right? That those that were at the front entered into the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Didn't have a chance to tell those in the back.
Yep.
So on the other side of the sea, them coming out, a different perspective than those coming through, right? Because those in the front didn't see the chariots. Those in the back did. So the change and the transition is just different for both. The excitement of coming out of something because I made it, and then the tense and the tension and the anxiety of, dang, this change may affect me in a certain way because it just does something different. And so everybody adapts differently. Like, so at 41, I'm just now learning how to deal with change because my life has been full of constants. Yeah. Like things have stayed in my life for a long period of time. Yeah. So over the last 4 years, it's just been a lot of change. Not bad, but just change in career, profession, everything. And it's happened so quickly. I've just become adjusted to how things change.
Yeah. And I hear two things in that. One, I hear just thinking about the requirements of a trailblazer. Yeah. Right. So the people who are at the front, who are going through that Red Sea, and they see all that and the barriers that they're having to tear down as they go through, and they are experiencing, like you said, people experience it differently. They're experiencing it very, very differently. But had they stopped, then what would have happened to everybody who's behind them? Yeah. Somebody has got to be able to be the trailblazer. Yeah. And everything. But then the second thing I thought about too was in my ministry journey, because I've been in youth ministry, children's ministry, next gen ministry. I've done all of it since 2006. And in that time, I have served at 5 different churches. And every church where I've served, I've had to leave at some point because God has taken me somewhere else. And my season there has come to an end. And every time that I have been preparing to leave, I've been very clear that it's been time for me to go. Yeah. And I've had conversations with people and they're just like, how do you know when it's time for you to go? Yo, I have just known. I feel like God would just make it so clear in your spirit that you just cannot miss it. And I've been very clear about the times when it's been moments when it's been time for me to leave and transition into something different. And there's all kind of feelings that you have around that. I mean, there's fear that you have, you know, there's hesitation, there's uncertainty because sometimes you just don't know what's next. And this whole ministry transition is a whole conversation. It can really just take us, you know, somewhere completely different. When I think of change in general, I think of change in 3 different segments. I think of like ending one thing, and then there's a transition period, and then you're beginning something different. And I feel like as you navigate through life, we are constantly in this cycle of ending one thing, transitioning through onto something next, and then beginning something again. Then once you get in a good groove, at least it's been my story. I don't know everybody else's story. I don't know what your story is, your story. But for me, it's like once I get in a good groove, God is like, all right, now it's time for you to end this thing, transition through, and move on to begin something again. Yeah.
Because sometimes the transition can be so fun, but the transition is not the destination. Yeah. Right. And so it's like when you leave one place and on your way to another, that middle passageway can just be so much fun. And personal experience, I was at one church for 16 years.
But the middle passage was not fun. So let's just be clear about that.
Right. The one, right. But like I was at one church for 16 years. Yeah. And you couldn't have told me that I wasn't going to be there, because my thought process was people stay on jobs 30, 40 years, then retire. So I can stay at a church this long and do the same thing. But there are 16 years and God blessed my time there. But my pastor passed away in 2019 and just through transitions after COVID and everything. So from 2021 until now, I've been at 2 different churches, right? But for 2 different reasons. Yeah. And with a statewide organization that gives me opportunity to pour into, you know, hundreds of churches. But it's like all of that is still on the way to something else.
That's right.
And being on the cusp of that something else has me scared out of my mind. But like, I just realized that it's all been in preparation, that change is about preparation, right? That you can either embrace it or you can be complacent and stay in a place. And I'm gonna go left, come back right real quick. There are so many people who God wants to do more for in their life and their ministry, but he can't because you won't move, because you're scared to change. And I get it. because change can be scary.
Yeah, it can.
It can be so scary. And because going back to how you started, I don't want to learn new routines.
Yeah.
I don't want a new coach.
Yep.
I want my coach.
Yep.
I want those routines. But if you don't embrace the change, you'll have one sad life.
But I think with the challenge though, the challenge in that, and I think most people's challenge with changing is because if God has given you an instruction to do something, right? A lot of pieces here. You have got to have the discernment that what it is that God is telling you to do is what God is telling you to do.
Yeah.
And you have to have the ability to be obedient, right?
Yep.
Some people have a hard time being obedient because they believe that, hey, if God has given me an instruction, then God will provide provision for this instruction. And I personally believe that God does. God provides provision for every instruction that God gives you. But sometimes people want to see the provision before the act of obedience. And I think that while I do think that we do need to be obedient, I think that, sometimes people end up making these stupid decisions, right? I'm walking away from my job while I got 12 cents in the bank. Now, I'm not saying don't lean into faith. I'm not saying that if God told you to walk away from your job with 12 cents in the bank, maybe that's what you need to do and be obedient. I'm not saying God is not going to provide provision. However, I don't also think that God wants us to be a fool. I don't think that God wants us to be an idiot. And I think sometimes people want to see the provision provided before the act of obedience. And I think that sometimes God will provide the provision when you make the decision to be obedient, but sometimes God provides the provision through the act of obedience. And it's up to us to know whether any change that we're in the process of making or transition we're in the process of making, is this one of those situations where God is going to provide the provision after the decision to be obedient has been made or after the act of obedience is going to be made? Because I think that it's two different things, and the way that we navigate through that, especially if it's through the act of obedience, especially when it comes to like shifting from careers. Yeah. That can be scary. Yeah. Or when it comes to moving from state to state, that can be really, really scary. Yeah. And I know for me, listen, I think I may have moved states 4 times in my life. And that's a scary thing. Yeah. Especially when you got a whole family you're towing with you from one state to the next. That can be really scary. So I think some people just need to see God's provision but
that ain't faith.
I agree. I do think it's a major faith leap. I do think that, but I do think also that God doesn't. So Lena, I don't think that God wants us to be idiots either, too, Purvey.
Right.
So I think we've got to be able to be discerning about the situation that you're in and whether it is one of those, do I need to have faith and make an obedient decision? Or is this one of the ones where, no, God is going to look out for me and provide some sort of provision before I actually act, but after I make the decision to be obedient.
But what you said, I wrote it down, make sure I got it. I'm going to give you credit for it the first 2 times. Sometimes people
cite your sources, baby.
Sometimes people want to see provision before they're obedient. And that is, I would hands down say, if we had 10 next gen leaders to call in right now, 9 of them would be in that category. That I want to see what God is going to do before I make this move, because I got a family to feed. Yeah. Or I don't know where I'm going, or I don't know if that church or that organization's going to pay me what I'm worth, right? All of that. And so that's one side of it. But I totally agree with you that God does not want us to be idiots, which is why I believe like your prayer life, the one word you use, discernment, but also having wise counsel.
That's right.
Like having people in your life that make sense to your spirit, because their spirit's right and y'all spirits connect, right? So the need for mentors, pastor, friend, family, whoever, like have somebody who can speak into your life that you can actually listen to. Because there's some people that can speak to you and you are hearing them, but you're not listening, because you just like having a conversation with them. There's other people that when they speak to you, they speak to a certain place in you and it triggers something or it activates something. So you have to have those people in your life, especially when it comes to change, because change is scary. And I think it's wise to run your change of plans or your change by someone, say, how does this sound? Especially if you're praying, if you're talking to the Lord. Well, what happens is you'll get a conversation with somebody and they'll confirm or affirm what God has been saying to you, and your spirit will leap. Your spirit will confirm it. Now you're still gonna be scared out of your mind, but it will confirm that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or the path I'm supposed to be taking. And you got to follow the Lord on that.
I think some people are just lazy too.
Yeah.
You know how like there's cell phone plans that might come out and you pick a plan and you stick with it. I'm the one that's going to pick a plan and I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to be on that same plan for 20 years later. And there's 50 plans that have come out since then that are better, but I'm still paying that, whatever that rate is per month for that plan, because I'm just not about to do the research and figure out, hey, is there something better that's out there?
Yeah.
And then thinking about it from the sense of like the lotion that I use, I've been using it for so long because I'm like, hey, this is what I like, and I'm going to stick with it, and I ain't changing it, right? But I think that sometimes we don't recognize that there might be something that is better out there. And I think that's how you keep yourself from being an old guard. Mm-hmm. If you're always staying, hey, what else might be out there? Staying curious. And I think when we remain curious, God will feed that curiosity and expose us and share different things with us. And through that, we see different things, and we're like, hey, man, okay, I see this out there. I see this. But we don't always want to do the work that's required in order for us to get to that place. Yeah. We don't have that dedication. We don't always have the drive. We don't always have the internal motivation, because not too many people can stick with something without seeing some sort of fruit produced.
Yeah.
And if you have been pushing through something and you're just like, I don't see no fruit produced, then it's easy to fall complacent and stay back to where you were instead of continuing to power through. And I think it's that period of transition when you are going from where you have been to where God is taking you, that you have got to have that drive. You've got to have that consistency. It's kind of like when you in a new relationship and you staying up all late at night on the phone with somebody because you're just really excited about this person, right? You've got to be able to keep that same excitement and that same drive and that same motivation through that period of transition, because what can happen is if we're not delicate and sensitive to those period of transition and don't navigate that well, then it can really make or break how we step into whatever is next.
Yeah. The speed of growth for the tree is not on the one who planted it.
That sound like something you Google. Let me find a quote about change.
For real.
I'm just
because
kidding.
like if you plant the seed, your whole job is to water it. The speed of growth for that, it's not on you. Yeah. It's totally and completely up to God.
Yeah.
On how fast that grows. So, and then as it grows, the changes that comes with that, you can't speed that process up. Mm-hmm. You got to be patient with it. So a lot of people give up too soon because they don't see fruit.
That's right. That's so right. That is so.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And like you miss out on the blessing, the provision, because you gave up too soon because there was a change of pastor, or a group of kids graduated, or your church changed neighborhoods, or you had to go to a different church. No, you still got the gift.
Yeah.
You're still doing what God has called you to do.
That's youth ministry, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Like a lot of these kids and these teens, they ain't gonna give you much.
Come on.
They're not gonna give. They're not gonna be just, oh, I'm so excited about this, or like some of them will, but you don't always see the fruits of your labor in ministry when you're working with young people while they are in your ministry.
Because you're 20 years in the game.
That's right. Yep.
There's some people I've met that you youth pastored that are grown.
Yes.
Some people you've talked about that are adults now, that are doing great things, and the Lord is giving you opportunity to see it.
But you don't always see it.
But you never, when they were in middle school,
oh no,
you're like, I did not think you were going to become that. no. Right. Did not think you were going to become that. Right. So it's
that's real.
It's that, and then there are other kids who I haven't seen again. Mm-hmm. Saw them every Sunday, saw them every Wednesday. They came to church, they graduated, haven't seen them since they graduated. And I just pray that God is doing great things in their life. But my job was to water.
Yeah.
And I can't get so caught. Oh, they're not changing. They didn't accept Jesus before they graduated high school. Like everybody won't. Mm-hmm. Everybody won't.
Yeah. So
and it's something that the leader has to understand, that with growth, with change, the production of what you want to see, it may not always be immediate. Mm-hmm. Some of the best things are delayed.
I know. And I feel that. Because I think for me, even with starting BOON, something that has been the words that my husband said to me, I remember we were talking one night, and he has just said to me, just keep it consistent. 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 Like, just, I'm like, but babe, like, just keep it consistent, Candice. And I think that that's a tremendous lesson for most people as they're navigating through any period in any phase of anything, is just the consistency of what's required for us to continue to push and navigate through. Because I do believe that God honors the effort that we put into stuff.
Yeah.
And I believe that if God has given you an instruction to do something, we have got to be obedient, and through our consistent obedience, God will honor that. You know, I think about this podcast, right? And how when we first started out, like, honestly, I wasn't checking to start no podcast when we first started having conversations about BOON and period. Podcasting was not an option for me. It was not on the table. It was nothing that I wanted to do, right? Only reason we started doing it is why? Because you said, let's do a podcast.
Oh, wow. Look at Jesus.
You didn't know that. You remember that? You said, let's do a podcast.
Wow.
Podcast. And I called a friend of mine up, and she's like, yeah, you definitely need to do a podcast. And I'm like, all right, I guess we could do a podcast, but it's going to be a mini series podcast. And then I forgot, I don't even remember at this point how many episodes the mini series podcast was. Then we decided, hey, let's keep it consistent and let's keep it going. Some episodes, man, they ain't seen. I mean, I don't even know how many people have watched some of them, but it isn't. Some of them haven't been seen by a whole lot. Some of them have been seen by way more people. Yeah. But I think it's just through the act of consistently doing it that God has been honoring it. And here we are, 21 seasons in, and we've come to the end.
21 episodes or seasons?
Right, we're here at 21 episodes.
Okay, I'm about to say seasons. You ain't keep me around that long. 21
episodes in, but we've come to the end of this podcast.
Yeah.
And I think some people might be kind of shocked to hear that, but some people might not. I don't know where you might stand, but it's not necessarily the end of this it's the end of this podcast, but it is the beginning of something different. As we went on tour, one of the things that I consistently noticed as we went on tour is just the different roles that people played in the lives of children and youth and even young adults. You know, the village that really surrounds people. If we're going to be really intentional about impacting the faith of our young people, then we have got no choice but to address the village. Our conversations in this podcast have been more so leaning towards just within the context of the church. But when you look at millennials, most millennial parents, I mean, like, not everybody, but there's a lot of millennial parents who, are believers that don't attend church and aren't connected to a faith community. And then you have people who are having their kids participate in all kind of sports and extracurricular activities. And knowing my husband is an educator and he's a coach and he's a believer, and he's doing way more ministry than some youth pastors by being out there on a football field every day and showing up to the classroom every day. And just the way that he engages his students, that's ministry. And the potential for us to really have a greater impact on the faith of our young people, if we were to address the broader village that surrounds them and not just within the context of a church. I think when we first started out BOON in general, this listening tour has just been, I mean, it's rocked my world, man. Like we had started this podcast just trying to let people listen to us, but then we had an opportunity to go on the road and actually listen to people. And when you listen to people, the ways that you realize that you can affect their lives, it just expands differently. When we first decided to create BOON, like the things that I had seen, the things that you had seen, the things that other people had seen who were in the room with us, a lot of it was just, hey, let's create an organization just like the ones that we have seen. However, let's make it be for Black churches and Black youth and Black children. However, going on tour, man, that was the best thing that probably could have happened to BOON. It was the best thing that could have happened to us because it made me realize that even in our inherent structure as an organization and as a podcast, we were just creating a carbon copy of what everybody else had. And then it made me really just start asking different questions of what do our people need? And within Black communities, the village has always been the strongest piece of us, because we have had, like, even before, like we talked about I mentioned the Middle Passage earlier. Forget the Middle Passage. Let's go back to Africa when we were on our native land. The village that surrounded us, that we leaned into, it was just community oriented in a much different way. And that community has continued to thrive throughout us. So as we move forward with just BOON in general, and then even just with our podcast, we're going to do a complete revamp, man. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the things that I am probably so incredibly excited about. It is something that I feel is directly ordained by God. But in order to get there, we've got to make some changes, and it's requiring obedience. It's requiring me. I've been up at night just thinking and praying and just processing and just sitting in my office, literally just staring out the window, just staring. My neighbors probably think I'm crazy as I don't know what, because I just be looking, and just processing and praying. But we are in this major season of transition, and it's scary. Mm-hmm. But I believe that the same God that has given us the vision will continue to provide the provision, just as God did through this and the things that I've learned through being on this podcast with you. So, I mean, I know we kind of laugh and joke about somebody said something to me like, you and Purvey got some beef, man. Ain't no beef.
We beefing.
Not
a lot of the people, we beefing for real.
Stop playing, because people don't think it's real. They're going to be like, no, they really do got something going. It ain't no beef, man.
Nah, real talk. Like, I mean, like it's you have people in your life that you do life with, and sometimes the Lord allows you to do different things with those people. But it doesn't change the relationship.
That's right.
I mean, we were all in the history of our friendship and our brotherhood and sisterhood. We were able to say we did a podcast one time together.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, and the benefit from it, people grew, people learned, and the Lord showed you some things. So it's been an honor to be on this journey with you. I mean, we've had some honest conversations just about how much I could give to BOON, period. Right. Mm-hmm. And so just being in this space, in this timeline of BOON has been super fun. Yeah. Like, I mean, coming to Atlanta, being in this beautiful studio, meeting new people. And even as we do ministry, I've been in the airport, I've been at conferences, and some of our Black church leaders who, hey, we looked at the podcast, we watched the podcast. Yeah. It's been super cool building off of that. And it's just, and as change happens, there's things going on in my life too that is like, all right, it's so this theme of change is just there, and it's all good, because you said something earlier. Consistency entails change, because as you're going up the hill, you're being consistent with your movement going up, but things change. The terrain changes. Some things are flat. Some things are kind of rocky. You got to until you get to that mountain. There are different changes. I watched this show called The Summit, and that's what it was about them. 14 days of them getting to the top of the mountain, and there were 8 different checkpoints. So every checkpoint had a different obstacle. They were consistent in their movement, consistent in their togetherness, consistent in their goal. But it was change happened between every checkpoint. Such is life. Yeah. As you're going to reach your goal, be consistent with your movement, but expect change to happen in between where you are and where you're going. At different checkpoints that the Lord wants you to meet before you get you where you want to go. So, and this is one of our checkpoints. Yeah, absolutely. And like BOON is your baby. Yeah. But BOON is your baby, and the Lord speaks to you differently about what He gives you to create. Yeah, that's true. So everybody else is like grateful to be a part of it. What is the Lord speaking to you? How can I be a part? How can I? So it's like now, okay, podcast is over. How can Purvey be a part of whatever else you got going on? What does that look like? Yeah. Right. So, but now we not beefing, y'all. This is my sister. Not beefing. And sometimes people say that just so it won't be no, for real. Like there's nothing.
We still gonna be doing stuff together. Yeah. Still gonna be seeing us at different.
Like there's nothing wrong. Like
if we had a paid commercial, I would mention the next place we're gonna be at. But we ain't got no paid commercial, so we ain't saying nothing.
Absolutely. But no, we good. Good. Yeah. And this has been absolutely amazing. And the good thing about music, podcast, information, it outlives you.
That's true. That is so true.
These episodes will be there forever for people to go and learn from and glean from. Yep. It's timeless information from some amazing individuals. So for my part, before I end, thank you for the opportunity. It's been super cool. Like we haven't had this type of connection in our brotherhood and sisterhood.
That's right.
So doing this with you has been super fun, but also just seeing you walking what God's called you to do.
Yeah.
That tour was dope. Yeah. Like I was able to be on 2 stops. And so like, but just seeing it, the way it was marketed, you saw it on social media, and the intentionality and like the professionalism in which it was carried out. It was dope.
We have a great team, man. Our team is a phenomenal team of people who really just believes in the vision and believes in the things that God has put in front of us to birth. But I do think that even still, though, I mean, this has definitely been, just a run for us that has been great, but there is still even some grief that comes along with ending this and moving on to something different. There's some trepidation, hesitation, because when you leave one thing and move on to something different, like what you're gonna get with certain things. What it is gonna be. You already know, but when you stepping into the unknown, it's kind of like, man, what's it gonna be?
Yep.
I know nothing about what's on the other side. Yep. But I do know what's on the other side when I have faith, because especially when I know that I'm operating in obedience, and I know that this is what God has given me to do. So I know what's on the other side, but I don't know what's on the other side. It's
one of those things where I don't know what's on the other side, but I know who's on the other side.
That's right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And as long as he's there, I'm good.
That's right.
Come what may, day to day. Right? We gonna make it happen.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the BOON Podcast. And for all of you who have been riding with us from the very beginning, from episode 1, we just thank you for the many ways that you reach out to us and send love, the text messages, the posts, the comments, the likes, the subscribes, all that good stuff. The many ways that you have blessed us, the ways that you've even given towards this podcast for us to be able to continue to produce what we produce. Your contributions have not gone unnoticed, and they have not gone in vain. And I cannot wait to show you all what we have next. I promise you, it is going to blow your mind, because we are truly coming to really, really, I can't say that. This might be cool to keep in there, because I can't say what's next, but just stay tuned to what's next. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. So see you next time. You should really keep all that in there. Me trying to figure it out. BOON ain't ending, girl. Listen, I'm trying to eat. Don't you like eating? All right, man. That's a wrap. Cut. Your price is way too high. You need to cut it. Stay tuned for more from BOON.